unboxing and review of the Philips Voice Tracer DVT6110, which is described as an audio recorder for music, lectures and interviews. But whilst that's their suggested uses for this audio recorder, I buy devices like this for other purposes, but we'll get into that later. Right, let's unbox it. The box it came in is absolutely massive when you consider the size of the device. However, the box is really light, so I'm assuming most of it is just padding. And sure enough, the box is full of bubble wrap, and you can see the voice tracer is buried deep in the middle there, which is a good thing because this has come all the way from Austria, and the voice tracer should have been well and truly protected from any banging about that might have happened to it on its journey over here. And there's the actual Philips Voice Tracer box, and it's one of these boxes that's got every inch has been filled with print. So we'll take a quick look at what's written on the box before we take the voice tracer out. Reading the highlights off the box then, it's got high resolution audio recording, 24-bit, 96 kHz. It's got 3 high fidelity microphones, a free remote control and sharing app, a built-in tripod thread for easy positioning, and built-in memory, plus a memory card slot. And if we look at the back of the box, it's really just re-emphasising the highlights of what the device can do. So let's open it up and take a look at it. I can't imagine there's many people out there who haven't heard of Philips, but just in case you're part of the Apple generation and you haven't, Philips were founded in about the 1890s, and they're the company who invented things like the cassette tape and the CD. So they've got a really rich history of innovating in the music industry, and they're definitely not one of these knockoff companies. Emptying the contents of the box out, the voice tracer itself is fitted into a vacuform plastic surround to protect it, and initially just one piece of paper fell out. But then, after looking a little more closely, I found there's actually 3 documents in there. One is a quick start guide, the second is a year's warranty document, and the third one is just the recycling how to get rid of this when you finish with it document. And also in there was a short USB lead, which is the standard type you get with a mobile phone. So far it's all looking good. The voice tracer looks safe, and it looks like we got the right amount of documentation and accessories, and the packaging's not trying to be too pretentious like some big firms tend to do these days. The voice tracer itself really tightly fits into the plastic surround, and it's a real struggle to get it out, so I'm not going to be putting it back in there in any hurry. My first impressions of this are really good actually. It's small and it's light and it fits in the hand comfortably. They've rounded off all the edges so there's not a sharp edge in sight. The business end looks cool, so I can't wait to hear what it sounds like. Let's take a more detailed look at it. And on the right hand side we've got the power switch and a lock switch, and underneath that we've got a Wi-Fi switch. Going over to the left hand side we've got a microphone input socket and a headphone output socket. Next to that we've got a micro SD slot, which is covered with a rubber protection, which is good, and underneath that there's the USB connector. On the front, initially when I looked at it I thought we had this big control wheel with the up, down, left and right arrows on it, and a record button in the middle with the 2 buttons underneath that, a loop button it looks like and a menu button, and then on the other side a play button. But if you look more closely, there's 3 buttons underneath the screen, which are kind of disguised in with the screen. So we've actually got quite a lot of buttons on the front of this. And I can't tell you what they do until we look at the instructions for it. On the back is a standard camera mount, and I can see this being really useful. And it means you can mount it to anything you can mount a camera to. For example, a tripod or a grip or a camera. This is only a small detail, but I could see this being really useful. And finally, on the top are 3 microphones. We've obviously got a left, a right and a mid unidirectional one. We'll see how those perform in a bit, but first I'll charge it up using the USB cable. When I plugged it into the computer, it's gone into USB mode, and there's a little battery logo in the corner, which I assume means it's charging. But also, a couple of seconds after I plugged it in, my computer recognised it as being like an external hard drive. So I'm assuming once you've got some recordings on there, we can access them via the USB. And whilst it's charging, I'll just take a quick look through the Quick Start Guide. The Quick Start Guide is really easy to understand, but it's very basic. It just tells you how to turn the device on and off, how to start and stop a recording, how to start and stop playback. It also tells you how to connect it to the computer, which we've already done, but it shows here that there is a more detailed instruction on the device itself, which we'll have a look at in a minute. The final thing it tells you is how to find the app, which is a remote control for the device. So I'll download that onto my phone while it finishes charging. Meanwhile, let's take a look at that shortcut that was described in the Quick Start Guide. And the shortcut has taken me to a web page. I think the most relevant thing on this page is it's got a search box for the different devices. So I'll type in the DVT6110 and see where it takes us. And that's now taken me to all the documentation and instructions and stuff, and a firmware update as well. I noticed there at the top it's in various languages, but the default is obviously English. I'm going to download the leaflet because I'm curious about that, the manual and the firmware update just in case I need it. Before I eject it from the computer, let's take a look at what's in those other folders. And we've got a voice folder with subfolders A, B, C, D, and they seem to be empty. And we've got the music folder, which also seems to be empty, and then that start HTM. Right, let's eject it from my computer and then we can take a better look at it. When I eject it, it seems to stay on and go back to a home screen. Right, let's take a better look at it now. The first thing I'll do is I'll have a look in the settings and see if I can make it easier to film. Really, I need to make the screen as bright as possible, and I need to prevent it from going off every few seconds. Thankfully, I found the settings I wanted, so I've turned the backing light right up and I've prevented it from going off, so theoretically it should be easier to film. There's tons of settings, and what they've done is broken them down into 3. So those 3 buttons, the first one is for recording, the second one is for playback, and the third one is for the device itself. So for example, in the play options, you've got playback mode, equalizer and clear voice, which is their own filter system. And in the record options, it seems to work in these things called scenes, which are predefined settings. It would seem that because the scenes are all predefined, you can't actually change the settings in them. if you want to alter the record settings and the quality settings and things, you need to go into a custom setting and then set it up yourself. So I'll do that. The recording quality goes all the way from 8 megabit per second MP3 files to 24-bit 96 kilohertz WAV files. I'll choose the 48 kilohertz WAV files because then I don't have to manipulate it before it's uploaded to YouTube, and you'll be hearing a more accurate representation. Continuing through the settings, you can see the two microphone types there, the Zoom and the 360. I'll leave the 360 on for now. It'd be interesting to see what the noise cut does and the wind filter, so I'll try those in a bit. There's an awful lot in there and an awful lot of options to go through. Whilst I'm here, I'll have a look at the input settings, because it would be nice to take one of the microphones off my DSLR and plug it into here, and then that'll be a good test because I've got a good idea how those microphones sound. And that's it for the settings for now. Let's just do a little recording. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go, I bet you didn't know I could count to 10. I do like the way it shows the waveform. Ah, I see, that little line is the cursor in effect. Okay, that should work now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's quite good, but I don't know if you can hear it. I don't remember seeing a setting for volume in the settings. How would I do that? Ah, I know. No, it's not in here. We actually just used the arrow button. The up turns the volume up and the arrow down turns the volume down. Duh, should have known that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When I first looked at this, I didn't think it had anything to offer. However, now I've got into the settings and realised just how versatile it is. It is quite a powerful little gizmo. I really hope the most important thing, which is the sound, lives up to the rest of the device. But before we look at that, let's check out the app and see if that does anything interesting and if it works properly. What it says in the instructions to get the app working is to create a Wi-Fi hotspot on your phone, then turn the Wi-Fi signal on the voice tracer and wait for them to connect. So it's seen the Moto and I just need to hit the record button for it to connect. And that was easy enough. It now seems to be connected. Well, there's not much there, is there? Let's try and click on this file and see what it does. Ah, I can see what it's doing. It's downloading the test I did earlier so it can be played on the phone. So the main icons on the screen here represent recordings on the voice tracer. Let's take a look what this icon does at the top of the screen. These are filters, so if you've got a lot of recordings on the voice tracer, you can search through them more easily. Right, before we do another test recording, let's just have a look through the settings. And they're a lot easier to go through here than on the actual voice tracer itself. I can see myself using this app more than using the actual device to change the settings, because it's really nicely laid out. Let's try a recording then. Look, you can see the red record lights come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Second recording. Right, let's see if that's there. And you have to close the recording. Ah, that's a bookmark. Oh, there we go. Finish recording, bottom box. And there we've got 2 recordings now in the memory. Let's try putting another one in. There it is again, recording. Simple as that, and it's recording again. Brilliant. There we go, we've got the 3 recordings I've done on it. That's really decent, isn't it? That's a really decent app, and I've not found one glitch on it so far. So to turn it off, you literally just turn off the Wi-Fi on the voice tracer and stop the app on the phone. Something I forgot to mention before whilst I had the app open was the fact that it gives you the option of sharing your recordings. So for example, if I was to do a new recording, when you get to the screen at the end where you'd normally close the recording, you can actually share it. See, if you look in the menu here, there's a share feature, and if I click on that, it will download the file to my phone, and then from the phone you can choose to share it to one of these other places. So the options it's given me are Messages, Bluetooth, Gmail or Save to Drive, which I assume is Google Drive. And for some reason it's also given me Donna's mobile, who's my wife, possibly because she's on the same network. Right, let's have a look at the sound tests. And I literally tested everything from wildlife, talking, music, tone generator and everything in between. And as you can imagine, there's loads of them, and some of them go on for 5 minutes. So there's no way I can include all these. It would be the most boring video you've ever watched. And the reason I did so many tests is I wanted to be sure in my own mind, because I wanted to do an honest review. And to do that, I really needed to do a lot of tests. So what I've got here is a summary of the best and the worst, and you can make your own mind up. And I'll give you my opinion at the end anyway. Something else I've done is to have 2 devices alongside each other so I can compare the Philips Voice Tracer with another device. And after going through my devices, I decided this little Zoom was the closest comparable recorder. So everything I record with the Philips, I'll also record with the Zoom, and that way I'll have something to compare the results with. So the first thing I used to test the mic was the sound of the birds. Being spring here in the UK, the birds are making a right din. And I've used this sound in several songs and soundtracks to give them atmosphere. So let's see how we got on with that. And this first test is all the voice tracer, but using various settings. The standard 360 sound, .360 with noise cut, .360 with wind filter, Zoom microphone selected, Zoom microphone with noise cut, Zoom microphone with noise cut and wind filter. The actual Zoom recording device. Now back to the Philips on standard 360. This test is with the sound of a river using the Philips Voice Tracer. Because it sounds so much like noise, I've turned all the filters off. What I'll do here is I'll go between the Philips and the Zoom H1 and compare the two. Philips Voice Tracer. Zoom H1. Philips Voice Tracer. Zoom H1. This is a test where I'm just doing a little bit of talking and I'm holding both of the devices in my hand at the same time, so they're at exactly the same position, so this should be a good test. First, the Philips Voice Tracer. They're both approximately a foot from my face, and they both should be about the same level. I've set them as closely as I could, and I just want to compare the results. This is obviously a sound check. So I will just move them into my mouth now, counting as I go, just so you can hear if they clip and what the difference will be. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's about 6 inches away from my mouth now. Right, that's the end of that test. Now the Zoom digital recorder. They're both approximately a foot from my face, and they both should be about the same level. I've set them as closely as I could, and I just want to compare the results. This is obviously a sound check. So I will just move them into my mouth now, counting as I go, just so you can hear if they clip and what the difference will be. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's about 6 inches away from my mouth now. Right, that's the end of that test. For this final test, I'm just going to play the acoustic guitar straight into the Voice Tracer. Then, about halfway through the tune, I'll change it to slightly edited. And when I say slightly edited, I'm only going to change the EQ slightly. And then you can see just how good the Voice Tracer can sound. Slightly edited. In conclusion, the Philips Voice Tracer seems like a really good solid piece of hardware. It reminds me of one of those old Nokia phones, and I think you'd have to drop it pretty hard to break it. The switch is good and solid as well, and the screen is clear and you can see it from any angle. The phone app on my device was really excellent. It was really solid and really reliable, and I could get to all the functions I needed to. All the sub-menus and everything. It was actually easier to use the Voice Tracer using my mobile phone than to actually use the device. So I did like that. The microphone lacks a bit on the bottom end and is very trebly, but you can correct this to a degree using EQ, as I demonstrated with that guitar track. But It's not unusable, it's actually pretty good, and when you consider the price, it's excellent. A feature I really liked was the fact that it had the input socket, which could be used for either a microphone or a line. And I tested it by plugging it into my mixing desk, and it was really good sound. There's no self noise like hiss, and the actual recording quality is really excellent. So that I thought was a really spot on feature. And that's worth mentioning in the fact that even on its own microphone, there's no hiss there at all. It's worth pointing out as well that the headphone socket works well and you can actually monitor what you're recording. So if you have to adjust anything, you can before it's too late. Unfortunately, these tests had to be quite limited because of the COVID thing. However, I've covered all that I could, and hopefully I've given you a good idea of what to expect if you bought one of these. If you have any questions, just stick them down below in the comments. But I'm not promising I can answer all of them because I'm by no means an expert on this particular device and I'm not affiliated with Philips. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please do like and subscribe, and if you're looking for guitar lessons, there'll be some coming up soon, and you can also go to www.ebooksforguitar.com for lots of free lessons there.